Okay, I'm going to be doing a really quick sketch of these flowers in a jar. Quite an interesting looking scene. Haven't done this sort of scene before. I'm going to start out with the sort of middle segments of the flowers. So I'll draw in a few like this. And the interesting, good thing about flowers is that they come in all different shapes and sizes. So, you can't get it wrong at the end of the day. So here's a few here, there's one behind there, there's a section here, just starting out with these darker bits. And from there what I'm going to do is actually start to draw out some of these petals. And I'm keeping it pretty loose as well. Okay, I just want to get in an indication of them. And this one actually is more on top like that. And you've got bits that just kind of come out there. Let's have one here, so this one kind of overlaps a bit. There, another one here. Let's have a look. Another one coming out there, and coming out here, here. Okay, there's a couple. Let me just get this middle section kind of sticking up a bit more. Cool. Then we can get in another one here, kind of on the angle, again, overlapping a little bit with this other one to the right. Pretty loose type of work. Okay, I'm trying to get this top bit a bit more there as well. That one there, another petal there. Here. So we can just take out, a few indications from the reference. Okay, even there's another flower underneath that we can also have a play around with. This one here is the most obvious one, of course, where we've got large sort of petals. They actually overlap in front of that one. There. I don't try to draw them too perfect as well. I think like that. That should be okay. There's another one here, so a few little petals, and one here, one here as well. Okay, fantastic. They're going to get their stems in, like this, little stems just coming past, and then of course they are in a sort of jar, which I'll have to indicate here, simply like this. The top of the jar there. Remember the petals kind of hang over the top of them like this, and then underneath we've got the actual jar which comes out so a little bit like this and then comes down here. Okay, I should have drawn it a little bit further up, but that doesn't matter. There. Okay, we've also got a little bit of the stems and things in the base of the jar. Interesting things, we've got some water down here, and then I'm going to use, I'm basically just going to use some wet to get the stems in here at the bottom. Okay, but it's important to draw that sort of water line in there as well. Okay, we've got that all in pretty loosely. In the background, we've got these kind of wooden boards that just sort of run across the scene, and then here as well. I might even think of putting an extra one up here, just following the patterns of the other ones as well. This, there, have that sort of coming down. Maybe another one here as well. Okay, fantastic. So I will give this a go with the painting. So what I want to do first is get in some yellow, bits of yellow and stuff for the actual flower. So if I just get some water, tiny bit of this yellow, drop that in here to the, just the little set sides of the little petals like that. Okay, This is just some lemon yellow, a very vibrant yellow. Okay, so just, quickly, not too accurately put them in. And yeah, that bottom part as well, it's important. The middle part of the flower, I mean, there. And because a lot of the darkness I'm just going to drop in right to the center. So it's a pretty light sort of mix that I'm using there, just to indicate these petals coming out like this. Yeah. And another one here. Here. And it's important to put these in because we're going to go in with some negative painting, cut around it in a moment, just afterwards. Fantastic. Now the centers of the flowers, I'm going to pick up a little bit of dark color, bit of neutral tint, or you can use Payne's Grey. Just drop that into the center like this. That's probably a bit much. Let me just dry that off a little bit. Something like this. Okay. There's a little mixing in there, but not too much. There. Here. Let's drop a bit of that in there. Like that. Let's try a bit here. There. Here. 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 Oops, one here as well, like that. Notice how they all sort of mix and blend in. That's what you kind of want. You've also got areas on the actual petals themselves, which are a little bit darker in areas. So here, you can just drop in a little paint, a little bit of Payne's Grey to darken down some of the petals. You don't want to do it to all of them, but just some of them. Just a tiny little indication of darkness in areas, especially some of these flowers that are kind of obscured by other ones. Okay, just sort of picking out a few. Like that. Okay. Look at this one on top here. A little bit like that. Okay, now moving further down here, I'm just going to add some greens. So I've got sap green, one of my favorite colors for sort of stems and things like that, and we can also start putting them in for the flowers up the top as well. So if you look kind of what I'm doing here, I'm just sort of wet and wet adding them in, a little bit of that green to indicate some of these stems coming down. Okay. And they're cutting through the yellow as well, which is important. Okay, just something moving through like that. And then of course down here into the stems, these sort of move down. Here, I'm going to lighten up this area a bit as well. It's going to have this sort of brownish color in the background, the wooden sort of blocks in the background. Not blocks, but wooden areas. So a little bit of that. It's a very light color. I don't want to drop in too much in here, but just really imply a few little leaves and stems coming down, basically. This area at the bottom, I'm going to pre-wet first, and add in some, maybe a little bit of blue, a bit of a cooler color in here, like this, just to get an impression of maybe some water in there. Right. A little bit. Okay. I get the stems here as well. These are sort of quite sharp looking stems because we're painting this obviously wet and dry. Oops. And then I'm going to come down and let's put in some of this down below, so you know, a little darker actually, like this. And this will create a kind of indication of the stems going down into the bottom of the jar. Some of them touching the bottom of the jar. Then the base of the jar, just going to darken down a little as well in there. A bit more blue, just to darken that edge. Yeah, just finding some areas that you want to darken up a bit more. So around here perhaps, even some of the stems we could darken down a bit more, like in here. Outline them extra, sort of details, like that. The top of the jar, I'm just going to pick up a bit of this neutral tint and drop that underneath, and it's going to be fairly dark actually. It's one of the darkest sections, and you're kind of just cutting around the flowers as well at the same time. Right hand side, it's pretty much light, so I don't need to do all too much there. Just trying to lift off a little bit of paint in this area and sharpen up a bit of the edges for the flower here. But I think that should be okay. Now for the area of the background now, what we want to do is drop in some colours, a bit of background colour, and I'm just going to use some of this 𝗪𝗙𝗙𝗦𝗦𝗘𝗦, which is basically a brownish mineral paint. Okay, so I'm just dropping some of that in like this and cutting around the jar as well, like that. And drop in a few other colours in there. It doesn't just have to be brown, but I do want to add in some burnt sienna too, just a kind of reddish colour, reddish brown colour. You know, here we've got these flowers and we can cut around them like this. There, and I'm leaving a bit of white as well, so it's not all just brown in there. Some more, and it's good if the paper is actually slightly wet where the flower petals are. If some of it mixes, it's no big deal. I'm hoping some of it actually does mix around, but you know, we'll see how we go. Now I'm going to get in some of the background areas as well, tiny bits of background areas. We're essentially doing some negative painting here. Oh no, I've forgotten to get in a petal here. This one. So just adding in a little bit more of this burnt sienna. This here. Very important to keep an eye on the shapes of the flowers and things so that they don't just disappear. Bit there. So this is all just a bit of again, burnt sienna, leaving a bit of that hard edge on the flower petals. Near the flower petals just will indicate those flowers a bit better, make them stand out more. You can also put in a bit more darkness in areas like this to help draw them out a little. I'm not going to overdo it though. A bit more brown or something in these areas as well, just some colour. We don't have to colour in all the areas. Remember, leave some white. Okay, so just carrying my way down here again. A bit more darkness around the edges here of the jar. Maybe some of it blending as well. That. a bit more brown, like this. Around the edge of that jar. There. Bit here. Here. Good. Might actually go in slightly darker this edge, so that we can put in a shadow running towards the back end like this. And there's lots of browns in here as well, so let me just indicate that. It is slightly lighter down the front here, so we'll have to indicate that. Some of that's kind of dried already, but we'll be okay. Even up the top here, parts of that have already dried. There we go. There. Some more brown here, or just some dark spot on that left side to indicate a shadow running towards the left. Line running across for this area. Few little marks for the jar. Like that. Still not too happy with the actual shape of the jar, but we can sort of create a bit more shape to it like that. I think that looks better. Move a bit of that colour to the left, like that. Put a little brown in here as well, so we get that background area in. Really, from this point on, it's just looking at some details that you can add in. But I think I'll call that one finished.
If you like this video, check out the playlist on the right. I release new tutorials and art supply reviews each week to help you progress faster in your watercolor journey.